Hello there, and welcome to RPG, Real Psychology Gaming. Today we take a first step into answering a difficult question. How do we deal with our life values in relation to gaming? My name is Oscar, and my day job is as a clinical psychologist, mostly with cognitive behavioral therapy, shortened as CBT. As a psychologist, I am often interested in the function of behaviors, the purpose of them, why we behave as we do, and make the choices we make. This isn't just interesting in a clinical setting, but also in the behaviors and choices we engage in during our everyday lives. So, why do we play games? And maybe more interesting, why do we choose the games we choose, and how can we choose better? Now, there are different ways to answer these questions. One way is in a general sense, what psychological needs are met, or which psychological processes are hijacked by this or that game. However, I want the answer to be relevant, I want you to be able to use it to better your knowledge of yourself and make better choices, so somehow we need to personalize the answer. The way to do that is to go to ourselves and ask, what is important to me? What are my goals and what do I value in life? In what has been called third wave CBT, a lot of focus has been directed to the role of personal values in psychological health. Acting and behaving in accordance with what we value in life is seen as a positive and a health factor, while acting in disharmony with those same values or with unclear prioritization amongst different or competing values is seen as negative and a factor in bad psychological health. This makes a lot of sense. Doing something when we would have preferred doing another is obviously stressful. Even so, sometimes we act in disaccord with our values, either as a matter of unclear priorities or a consequence of not seeing an alternative. At those times, it's a good idea to take a look at what we value, what is our most important values, and how we might act differently. So, how does this relate to gaming? I can think of at least two ways. One way is the prioritization between gaming and other aspects of life, and the other way is the prioritization in what games to buy and which games to play. Because yes, what we value in life do matter in our choices of games. An obvious example of this is the ongoing battle between those arguing graphics over gameplay versus gameplay over graphics, or PC versus console and vice versa. This simply comes down to values. What we take pleasure in and like in our gaming experience to some extent depends on what we like in general. However, I want us to take this reasoning to the next level, asking not just what we like in our gaming experience, but also what we want to get out of life and what place games have, what purpose they serve in our lives in a broader sense. Not clear enough? Allow me to explain what I mean. For example, I value learning. Thus, I tend to seek out experiences where I learn new information and where I might come in contact with something that is new to me. This is in many cases a prioritized value, a value that goes before many other aspects. This means that a game where I learn something new is, in general, excused for providing less engaging gameplay because I value the learning higher. In return, a game providing very exciting gameplay but no learning might be worth my time in the beginning, when the core gameplay still is new, but quickly loses its charm. Now, obviously it's not always this clear cut. For one, there is usually more than two competing values. In addition to learning, I have always loved stories in all forms, and this is often even more of a priority. So that is, I am more likely to like a game with a story but no learning than I am to like a game of pure learning but little to none story. Even so, learning plus gameplay would still be preferable to a story-based game with poor gameplay and no learning, because there is such a thing as added value. For a second, the values tend to compete on a spectrum rather than existing as extremes, so a pure learning game with horrible gameplay might still lose to a game that provides less learning or story, but a bit better gameplay. What I mean is, for me, it's not that gameplay is unimportant, just that it is less important than some other aspects. Also, these values aren't absolute truths. While I value learning and story, you might value graphics or gameplay higher. This will have consequences not just for which games we choose, but also for how we play and experience the same games. This far, what I have been saying probably isn't entirely new to you. It's mostly just a roundabout way of saying that we should buy and play games that we like. But there are some ways that the value-based gaming I propose differs from this, and I'm going to point out how now. The perspective of choosing games based on what we like often doesn't imply a very thought-through process. This is because liking and related concepts such as love, hate, weirded out by, and so on is an emotional response, often to a complete experience. I might say that I like Breath of the Wild and want to play games similar to it, and I would get pretty far on that statement. However, if I don't reflect enough on what in the game actually gave rise to that feeling of liking, I might end up spending time and money on games I do not like. If I liked the general aesthetics, that will imply one set of games. If I liked the graphics, another set of games, and if I liked the battle system or narrative or anything else in any combination, that will imply yet other games. Thinking more specifically about what we like, and importantly, why we like those specific things or interactions, will help us make better decisions. There is also the question of how our values outside of the games themselves affect the choice of games and experience of them. Gaming does not, unfortunately, take place in a metaphorical vacuum. Choosing to play is a choice in real life, and thus will be affected by other values than those in direct relation to the games themselves. I will demonstrate this by two examples: one bad game I might buy because of other values, and a better game I still regret buying because of other values. Example 1 is 1-2 Switch, which launched simultaneously as the Nintendo Switch last year. I have been thinking about buying this game since day one, and is still very seriously considering it. But now, let me be clear here, this is not because I think it looks like an amazing game. In a lot of ways, it looks mostly like a tech demonstration tool and driven by simple gameplay. It ticks none of the boxes in my internal good gaming list. So, why might I still buy it? Because I value opportunities to better the relationship to my family. I come from a family mostly of non-gamers, the exception being me and my brother. My sister and my parents like family games and family challenges, but do not play video games. This is a bit sad to me, because it is a big hobby that I cannot share with them, and we are different enough as it is. 1-2 Switch looks like a game that might help bridge that gap, so even though it won't be a game I end up loving, it still might serve a purpose in opening up for better understanding between family members, because they might actually want to play it. I value that opportunity. Example 2 is Skyrim. I didn't play it when it first came out, but bought it last year and started playing it then. It probably wouldn't have become my favorite game either way, but it is both story heavy and to some extent built around exploration and discovery, all of which are things I value. However, it is also a time sink of epic proportions, and gaming is something I find fun, engaging, and rewarding, but it is not the only thing in my life. I also value social relationships, doing something meaningful with my life, learning, creating, teaching, and so on. A time-consuming game like Skyrim, even if it's good, will put a strain on that prioritization between the game and other values. So, is it more important that I play this game, or that I do something else? Also, I value both finishing stories I started and new experiences. So, is it more important for me to finish the long main story and many side stories of Skyrim, or that I get to try other, perhaps shorter games and start and finish other stories? When it was clear to me just how much time it would take to finish Skyrim, I didn't even think twice before I started to look for something else to play. Again, this is not because I thought it was a bad game per se. Skyrim is a decent game, maybe even good, but it clashed with other values. Okay, talking about time, this video is probably running a bit long by now, so I am going to end it fairly soon. But I think you get the gist of what I try to mediate to you. Values matter. What we value in games matter. And what we value outside of games matter for our gaming experience. So, what do we do about it? One way to get a hold of our own values is writing them down. Ask yourself what is important to you in life and then provide an answer. After that, but only after, ask yourself where games fit on that list, how games affect those values, and how your gaming in turn is affected by them. Another way to get closer to an answer is thinking about what function games have in your life today. Do you use them to achieve social standing? Do you use them to procrastinate doing something else? Do you play games because you learn things, something completely different? By figuring out why you play and what purpose the games you choose serve in your life, you can make more informed choices around your future behavior. A third way to get closer to your gaming-related values is to think about what similarities and differences there are between what you value in games and what you value in other forms of media. What books, comics, TV series, and movies do you like, and are they analogous to the games you like? If yes, how? If no, also how? This way, you can create a sort of map of what you like and start pinpointing what aspects matter to you in order to use them to your advantage. In the interest of time, I will end this video here, but all of this is obviously just a small foray into this vast territory. I am sure that in time we will have reason to explore these questions further, because games have become part of life and deserves to be taken seriously. Until next time, bye.